And I know part of your practice, you focus on helping people stay and remain independent, throughout their golden years, if you will. I'd love to talk about this topic for a minute because I think it's one of the
Mm,
most under addressed conversations around why we want to be healthy. It's like when we think about, nutrition, everybody thinks of a diet in order to lose weight, just to look good, or when you think about um, maybe even fitness gets a little closer because fitness is associated with getting stronger and more capable. But very seldom do we actually talk about the fact of like, the real issues of when you get to your 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, everybody
mm,
just wants to bring to mind like a grandparent or an aging
yeah.
parent, and you'll think pretty quickly how much you're concerned about them tripping and breaking a hip,
Mhm.
and then landing in the hospital. And we now know that most people, I think it's over the age of 70, don't die from the actual fracture itself. If they have an injury, they die from the pneumonia that comes from being in the hospital for so long afterwards while they're healing. So it's like a very real problem, and I want more people to talk about it. So tell me more, just how you incorporate that into your practice and why you feel like that's important to help people be more independent as they age.
So, one of the things I emphasize to a lot of people, regardless of what ratio they're coming in for, is actually to be as active as they possibly can be and less sedentary. So what happens as we get older, we start losing more muscle mass, and it starts dropping off more precipitously as we're getting older too as well. There's also less protein intake that's also happening too as well. And so a lot of times, how many times I see like these older men with the bigger bellies and super skinny arms, we call it skinny fat, kind of essentially. So a lot of visceral fat and all of that. And these guys are just, they fall and they're breaking things. We can even see the same thing with women. They're becoming more cachectic. And so we do also that their mortality is simply much higher for some of the reasons that you mentioned too as well. But you also think about it physiologically, the muscle is also very biologically active too as well, and metabolically too as well. And so it's really important to be able to maintain that. And so that's really important. And so when it comes to the wear and tear of joints, everybody's joints are going to have wear and tear as time goes along. It's inevitable. We image things all the time and we see the difference between, a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old or whatnot. So if you're talking about also losing muscle mass and now you're having joints that are starting to become more unstable or whatnot, then you're ripe and you're at risk for having more chronic issues. And so being able to be physically active is really important. Exercise, building muscle, having a good diet. Diets can be variable in terms of what can help someone versus the other. I don't really think there's one, at least as far as I'm concerned, not one perfect diet. Some diets will work better than others with people. It's also about being consistent about, what you're consuming and doing, even though it may sound boring or whatnot. I think that's also kind of important. And then the other thing also that often gets overlooked too as well is many people just aren't sleeping very well. And when you're not sleeping well, your hormones are out of whack, and physiologically, you're going to be more of a mess. You're going to have more insulin resistance. You're going to have more chronic inflammation, more brain fog too as well, ultimately. And so we want to make that as more of like a non-negotiable thing, ultimately, for people so that they get the adequate rest so their body actually can get better.